Guys, my name is Najwa. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. If you are new here, please do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, hit that bell, that way you know whenever I post a video. Join our little growing community. Subscribe to the channel, make sure you know when all the videos are coming out by hitting the bell to get all of the notifications. That also helps push this community out into the algorithm, and we get to grow it and find each other and all of that good stuff. So definitely go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, hit that bell. Today we're going to talk about collective narcissism. It is a bitch. Let's go ahead and start with that. If you guys are like me, you maybe are a survivor. You had a narcissist in your life who was just secretly behind the scenes, pulling the puppet strings, sabotaging your life for years and years and years. It finally clicked for you. You were that, emblematic example of the empath, of the scapegoat. Maybe you were the golden child in a narcissistic family dynamic. It could be different. Your narcissist could have been a family member. It could have been a partner. It could have been a coworker. It could have been a boss, But what if you were in a system, or you are, unfortunately, in a system where it is a groupthink, narcissistic cult type thing? And that, I know that sounds extreme, but that could be a family, that could be a political group, that could be an entire company. Narcissism is running rampant right now in this time and age that we live in. So collective narcissism is way more prevalent than you think. Now let me just go ahead and preface this with saying, I am not, I know that, mental illness, who I watch a lot, he goes, let me go ahead and preface this. I know I want to say preface, and some of you guys are going to be like, that's not preface, it's preface. Hey, I'm from the South, so sometimes my drawl comes out. We mispronounce words. If I mispronounce something, y'all can come after me in the comments, but hey, it is what it is. But let me preface this. Yes, I did say preface. Let me preface this with just saying, you have to remember that collective narcissism is not necessarily this dramatic cult that you're thinking of in your head. And you really, really have to realize that if you are someone who has survived that narcissistic partner or that narcissistic boss, whoever it was, you really, really have to realize it, because now you are super susceptible to falling into that again. And most of the times when you've had someone narcissistic in your life, it just that cycle keeps repeating. You attract them like magnets. And that doesn't mean necessarily that something is wrong with you. It more means that you are a caring, empathetic person. You're an individual, but you're not just trying to say, holding up a sign, I'm an individual. It just comes naturally to you. And narcissistic people are drawn to those type of people. They want to absorb them because they literally can't, they don't know who they are. Without a group, without control, without, lording over people, without constantly baiting for supply to get people to constantly put them up on a pedestal, they don't know who they are. So they see you, you know who you are, and they instantly want to attack that. You could be, now let me just go ahead and explain what the different, sort of circumstances it could be of this collective narcissism. It could be a family. For example, it could be your family, quite literally. You could come from a family of narcissists, and maybe you're really just realizing it. Maybe you are taking a very real, deep conversation with yourself, with your inner child, and as you've grown and matured in your adulthood, you're revisiting some of these circumstances from your childhood, and you're looking back at things and saying, you know what, now that I think about that wasn't right. That wasn't right for my mom to be competing with me for my dad's attention. That wasn't right. Or you might think back and you say, that wasn't right, where my sibling was constantly bullying me, trying to, hog up all of our parents' attention and being kind of, the disruly child, but often pushing all the blame off on me. That wasn't right. So maybe you had these things in your family, and those are just examples. It could be all types of dynamics. Your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousin, your grandma, your granddad. There could have been, or it could have been a hierarchical thing where you were surrounded by narcissists. Narcissistic brother was protecting narcissistic mom, and narcissistic mom was actually just narcissist because dad indoctrinated her into narcissism, and dad is indoctrinated into narcissism because grandma, even though she had this sweet little cute old lady mask on, she actually was the rampant narcissist who was controlling everything. So you get what I'm saying. It's like you could be in a family where there's one major narcissist. You could be in a family where it's a whole narcissistic dynamic. That right there, collective narcissism. Okay, the narcissists are feeding off of each other. You could be in an issue where it's something like like, for lack of better words, a political space. Maybe you belong to this political group. And collective narcissism is all based on us versus them. It is the original clique. Why do you think that cliques are so prevalent? It's all based in narcissism. And right now, in such a heated political time that we live in, you really could be in a narcissistic group where they're like, that political group over there are terrible. They're ruining the world. I hate all of them. All of them need to be eradicated out of this system. Does that not sound like narcissism to you? I mean, maybe it's not narcissism on an individual level, but that is like storybook narcissism. And that could be anything. It could be conservatives or liberals. It could be Republicans or Democrats. It could be, pro-choice versus pro-life. It could be anybody doing that, It could be conservatives. It could be ultra-far right people doing that. It could be ultra-far left people doing that. It could be Democrats doing that, for example, if you're in the U.S. But there is this system right now, this narcissistic system that cannot find that middle ground. And it's the same way that narcissistic individuals work. When you are an empath within a system with a narcissistic individual, it's never like, hey, can we find some solution? A little bit of what you want, a little bit of what I want, make it work. No, it's not like that. It's their way or the highway. Collective narcissism works the same way. The political arena right now, this divisive, hate-filled, dogmatic, violent, politically violent world that we live in right now, collective narcissism is really, really on the forefront of things. We just can't see it, and that's why it's so much more important to talk about these things, important to realize, hey, we all come from different spaces. We can be ourselves and be a part of a group, and at the same time honor that, have compassion and empathy for people who have different ideals outside of our own. This is the time right now where it is so much more important to enforce that than ever, ever, ever before. Another example is in society. Now, this one is a little bit more abstract, but collective narcissism really is rampant in society. It's rooted in those areas that come from, patriarchal norms. It's rooted in discrimination, coming from these systems that were really founded on discrimination, on colonization and things like that. Misogyny, rampant misogyny. If you notice, within narcissistic groups is the same way within those old traditional norms where there are all these unspoken rules and you really don't know how to navigate it as a newcomer. And I'm pretty sure many of you out there who have suffered from collective narcissism, and very simply put, if you've been around a bunch of narcissists, and that could have been at work, could have been in a family, could have been at school, could have been in-laws, could have been a friend group, a clique, whatever. But if you came in, and you were like, hey, I want to be a part of the group, but I'm an individual and I think of this way. All those people probably looked at you like you were crazy. Like, what? If you're going to be coming into this group, you need to think like we think. And if you're not going to think like we think, we don't want nothing to do with you, right? Does that sound familiar? Well, that's what society does. That's what societal norms that reinforce narcissism, collective narcissism, does. It says, hey, okay, we have this thing going on with the group. It's a us versus them thing. If you're not ready to get on the side of us, you are on the side of them. Where you say, hey, well, I'm a nice person, and, I've really worked hard at my passions. I've really worked hard at my career. I donate to charity, I really try to be a good citizen. And they're like, no. If you don't completely conform to these things that we say we believe in, then you are them. Doesn't matter if you're a good person. Doesn't matter if you are very passionate about all of these great causes. Doesn't matter. No. You need to conform to what we believe in. Another thing could be within friend dynamics, okay? I feel like we have all kind of been that kid at the locker, for example, in middle school or high school, and we've seen the cool group of kids, and we've kind of watched them with envy, with our little textbooks, cling to our chest, and we're looking at them and they're laughing and they're so happy, and you're not a part of that. And if you really are someone who they consider an outsider and you try to enter into that, what happens? Things like bullying, shaming. We see that so much in an elementary school dynamic. That is where the clique comes alive. But really, if you think about it, the same way that the narcissist is someone who is deeply insecure, they have problems that are deeply rooted in insecurity and, having a lack of self-identity, having a lack of self-confidence, self-love. What do you think happens in collective narcissism? It's the same dynamic. It's a dynamic where people really, really don't love themselves, but they sort of find some way to lean on others, put all of their insecurities together, and they create some sort of facade where they shield each other's insecurities, and that becomes a strength for them. And one really big example of that is also extremist groups and cult mentalities. Look at how many people have become susceptible to hate groups. People who you would never ever think. Well, they took a lot of those things, insecurities, unresolved childhood issues, a lack of self-confidence, a lack of self-love, deep, deep insecurity and self-loathing, and they found others who had similar issues, and somehow in a warped worldview, they convinced each other that, hey, we can use this as a strength, but the strength is really inflicting pain and abuse on others. I'll give you another example. Like I said, if you have a family dynamic, let's say, for instance, you married a partner who has a narcissistic parent, for example, and you marry into this sort of almost mob mentality, cult-like, machine, this cult-like enterprise that is a family. And hey, if you ever try to go against the family, they are going to try to put you down. Now, in that situation, it is very, very hard unless you have a partner who is aware of those dynamics already. If you got a partner who's aware of those dynamics already, you've already won half of the battles, so that means you probably can win the war. But if you have a partner who is really, really sort of still victimized by this narcissistic mentality, and they themselves don't want to step out of ranks, because that's how it works within these narcissistic families. It's really a dynamic of ranks. You need to fall in line within the ranks, and the most toxic, abusive, person could be the ones controlling these ranks, and that is a recipe for disaster. So if your partner is someone who is really indoctrinated, and in this way, collective narcissism is really, really like a cult, very, very hard to get people out of this. Another example could be within your workplace. Maybe you have a narcissistic boss. I was looking at a video just before this from Surviving Narcissism, which is a great channel. Dr. Ramani, Mental Illness, Surviving Narcissism, those are all great, great resources. But Surviving Narcissism, I love him because he's got this thick, it sounds like a North Carolina or South Carolina accent. I feel like I'm very, very in tune with those things since I'm from Alabama. I grew up in Georgia. And anyway, his accent aside, he's talking about, he's a therapist, and he talks about narcissism specifically. And in this particular video, he was talking about collective narcissism, and a therapist, was explaining how another therapist in his life, a boss that he had at some point, was running sort of a collective narcissism type enterprise, type cult. And he had worked in this office. Everybody had to sit at their desk in a certain way. Everybody had to wear certain type of clothes to work, and nobody could speak out of order. Everybody needed to call him Dr. So-and-so. And he says one day he called him Jim. He says, "Hey, Jim." And somebody walked up to him and said, "Hey, did you call him Jim?" And I heard that. He just goes, "Yeah, I called him Jim. If he's going to call me by my first name, why can't I call him by his first name?" Oh, we don't do that. So that right there, and that just blows my mind, even in spaces with therapists, And I've done so much research on the narcissist, and even therapists have trouble working with narcissistic clients because they start to feel feelings of depression, anxiety, stress. We've talked about that before. So it just goes to show you, your gaslighting, it exists. Narcissists have this extreme superpower of being able to make you question your own sanity. And the same works for collective narcissism. So in this case, those people who were saying, did you just call him Jim? They are ones who have really been indoctrinated into this. And I can't imagine the guy from Surviving Narcissism was a bad employee. He's a really great therapist. He's shedding all this great knowledge. So, but that goes back into this conformist mentality. Maybe you in your workplace, you had some coworkers or a boss who it wasn't coming from a place of expertise. It wasn't coming from a place of empathy. It wasn't coming from some, great techniques out there about soft skills, all of these rules, unspoken rules of conformity, of basically whipping you if you don't get in line to what the collective narcissist leader wants. This collective narcissist could be in the military. It could be in families. It could be in your family dynamic. It could be in your friend group. The point is that it's toxic. It causes pain. It's abusive. It does not give the attention, the light to differing personalities, our differing talents, and what makes us unique. Putting those things together to bring a compromise together to make this beautiful whole consistent of differing parts. And it's really, really bad, has really bad implications, and it hurts victims the most, And in this case, the victim could be one person, it could be multiple people. But I want to know what you guys think. Tell me about your collective narcissism experiences. And if you're new here, hit the like, subscribe button, click the bell so you know whenever I post a video, and I'll see you next time.